Where did design patterns come from? Many attribute the origin of design patterns in computer science to the book Elements of Reusable Object-Oriented Software. This book was published in 1994. The book had 4 authors, and these authors are most commonly referred to as the Gang of Four. The Gang of Four found inspiration in an earlier book called A Pattern Language. In this book, the idea of design patterns applies to construction and civic engineering. The first chapter of Elements of Reusable Object-Oriented Software defines design patterns using the words of Christopher Alexander, the author of the pattern language. Each pattern describes a problem which occurs over and over again in our environment, and then describes the core of the solution to that problem in such a way that you can use this solution 1,000,000 times over without ever doing it the same way twice. Even though Christopher Alexander was referring to civic engineering, software engineering can also define patterns to describe solutions to problems that can be used 1,000,000 times over. The Gang of Four provided a clear definition of software design patterns and outlined their required parts. Each pattern must have a name. The name describes the problem and the solution in only a couple of words. The problem must also be clearly stated, and it describes when the pattern should be used as well. The solution must be clearly diagrammed and documented, and all design patterns must define consequences or trade-offs when using them. The Gang of Four patterns refers to the original 23 classic software design patterns that were defined in the book. These patterns were broken into 3 categories. Creational design patterns have to deal with class instantiation, the creation of object instances in our applications. Structural design patterns have to deal with the way objects are composed or put together. And behavioral design patterns define how objects interact with one another. The Gang of Four design patterns were created for object-oriented programming languages, and the book included examples written in C++. However, the Gang of Four patterns can be implemented in a number of software languages, including Node.js. Additionally, design patterns are not just limited to object orientation. In fact, JavaScript has design patterns that deal with concurrency and module structure that were not included in the original Gang of Four design patterns. This is because there are hundreds of design patterns across many languages and programming paradigms, and new ones are being developed every day. In this course, we will also explore some additional patterns that have to do with concurrency to help us improve the structure of our Node.js applications. If there are good patterns in software that we should follow and include in our applications, then there also must be bad patterns that we should avoid using at all costs. These negative patterns are called anti-patterns. Anti-patterns define a bad solution, as well as how they can negatively impact your application. Understanding anti-patterns can be equally as important as understanding design patterns. When you see an anti-pattern in some code, we can say that that code smells, and we'll need to find a way to change it and make the code less stinky. There are several anti-patterns in JavaScript that we try to avoid. It's an anti-pattern in JavaScript to change or extend a prototype on an instance. This code really smells and can create all sorts of havoc in our applications. In Node, it's an anti-pattern to use synchronous execution after you've initialized your app. JavaScript has only one thread, so we shouldn't block it. This code would make our application slow for all of our connected users. Or how about this code smell? This is a very popular anti-pattern named callback hell. We will discuss some ways around this design pattern in the last chapter of this course. Design patterns and anti-patterns represent the do's and don'ts in the world of programming. A good code reviewer can spot code smells and anti-patterns just as quickly as they can spot good techniques and design patterns.